All right, good evening and welcome to Mock Ad Hoc. And I'm your host, Johnny B, and I help fantasy owners get ready for the preseason, get you guys in good shape to do your draft. This is a show where we definitely do some mock drafting, but hey, it's also called Mock Ad Hoc. So we're going to have a lot of fun with this. Tonight I have a special guest on. Welcome, Chris Z. Chris, how you doing out there?
Good. How about yourself, Johnny?
Doing well, man, and thanks for being on. So Chris is a fellow commissioner just like I am, and I think he brings another level to his league. And so we're gonna do a little interview on his style, what aspects they go with, and why their league is so hard to get into. I know he has a long waiting list just like I do. I think the most important aspect, I think, of the show tonight is he's in a keeper league. So Chris, we'll just throw it right back at you here. Explain a little bit to the listeners. Maybe we have some people who are just starting fantasy football. I'm sure we have some veterans too, but tell me about a keeper league.
The intention of the keeper league from our end is that I was in a few leagues year in, year out, and I felt like everything was a wash after every year. We were redrafting every year. Some of the guys just continually bad drafts, and never really had a chance. With keepers, you were able to pick a few players as your cornerstone, keep them, and move on and build from there. Our particular leagues, I run two, same rules for both, and you have three keepers for each league. You get three players, doesn't matter what position, doesn't matter how long you want to keep them, and it doesn't matter who it is. You get those three players, and there's nothing anybody can do about it unless you want to trade them away.
Nice. Gosh, I see the Rams hat in the background. I forgot you're a Rams fan. I'm a Niner fan. So, gosh, so everybody on this show is coming from the NFC West. I'm in trouble here. I couldn't help but see that trophy in the back. We'll have to get into that as well. But is it a PPR league, or tell me a little about the settings of your league?
Both leagues are PPR. We've got about 10 guys per league. We start 9, 7 bench. So it makes our draft move nice and brisk, considering we always put a week before the draft. We'll post the keepers. That way everyone knows which 30 players are gone who cannot be drafted. So you get a nice 13-round draft, moves pretty briskly. Everyone's kind of knows what they want. Other than that, we've got some special fun rules that we keep in line just to kind of poke the guys in the sides. And as you mentioned, we've got the championship belt that seems to be a possession that everybody wants. And I have to throw it out there, thank you to our current champion, Mr. Harper, for letting me bring that on today.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to assume the only way you get that out of his hands is if you take a picture of him first or something like that. I got a guy in our league, he's like that. He's like, no, you can't borrow the trophy. You can come around and take a picture of me holding it, but you're not taking it. So, yeah, thank you to him for sure for letting the commissioner hoist the trophy up tonight and take a look at that thing. We'll have to get into that a little later. So tell me about this rule. You guys have something, a lot of folks out there, right? So we encourage you to do a live draft, not really too fond of the online. But I really liked what you were telling me last time. We were talking about somebody who arrives to the draft, late. So for that guy, what happens in your league when you get a straggler, everybody's ready to go, and it's like a poker game, right? You can't be late to that. What's the penalty for that?
Yeah, we've got a little bit of punishment. We were running into a problem every year where we were being kept late by 1 or 2 people. So to kind of embarrass them, to make them kind of show up on time because no one wanted to, we had this here. It's a XXX, and the person to arrive last would have to don this beautiful cat shirt here, which is almost the size of a beach blanket for the entire draft.
That's pretty good. I like some of the different caveats to different leagues, and that's kind of why we're doing this show tonight. Like I said, we'll have plenty of time to get into mock drafts, and I got my board in the back. We'll ask you a few questions about that. But last show we did a show on league constitutions. There's all types of names for it. What do you guys call it, and how does that work in your league?
We have our league Bible for both leagues. It is something that I started as a base, and we've molded over the years as a league. I didn't want to be the type of commissioner who was, these were my rules, this is my league, this is how you're going to play. I like to listen to everybody, get their input, make the league as fun as possible, which is why I became a commissioner. I wasn't having any fun in the previous leagues I was in. They were too cutthroat. The prize pool was so high that some of the things were a little shady. So I just, we keep our prize pool decent, and I wanted my guys to have fun. So everyone has their fingerprint on the League Bible. It's readily available online. No one ever has to ask a question. All the settings are there on the keepers, how the draft works, trading draft picks, rules, scoring. It's all there. The humiliation for the shirt is there. It's all there. So if anytime they need to double check something, it's just a click away.
Yeah, and if somebody loses that belt that you have hanging up there, I'm sure someone's gonna have to pay a pretty penny to replace that.
Yeah, that's in the Bible too. If you lose it, you deface it, you break it, it's yours. You've got to pay for it.
Love it, love it. No, it sounds like a great league. So, all right, tell me the name of the league, because we're going to ask you a couple questions and strategy now. I know the listeners are going to want to know, hey, I'm in a keeper league. I'm sure people are listening out there. So what's the name of the league, and what is your specific strategy? And go ahead and just talk about this year. I think that'll be a good way to start.
Our league is called the ZFL. It was just something that we had used as a placeholder at the time, and then it just kind of stayed. For strategy-wise, I have to say that I am a disciple in the church of upside down drafting.
Nice.
I was a big fan.
We like that.
We have the book. My strategy this year, like I said, we have our keepers. And in that league, I'm basically starting off. My choices have been Jeremy Hill, Marshawn Lynch, and Demaryius Thomas. Those are my 3 players. So I unfortunately had to give up my first-round pick. I was close to the championship last year, and I decided to bite the bullet, and I traded that first-round pick for Marshawn. So I'm keeping Marshawn just because if I did, then that first-round pick would have been a waste. So I've got to wait till about pick 13 to get my number 4 guy. And I'm already set at 2 running backs. I'm looking to add wide receivers and tight ends right away. I think I can wait on a quarterback for strategy-wise. There are plenty of QBs out there that are serviceable for the time being. They'll get you wins. They're not all superstars, right, but they'll get you those points. So I need to grab those wide receivers and tight ends as fast as I can this year.
So with some of the other guys in your league, I mean, what you have to watch what they're doing, I'm sure, in a keeper league, right? You got to figure out, strategize. And if you've been playing with people for so long, it's almost like, how I describe it, you're playing the game of Monopoly, right? I mean, everyone's played it so many times. You start to develop trends. You start to see, hey, maybe this guy that won the league that you were just referring to, he's got a certain style. How cognizant do you have to be about stuff like that, especially in your league, if you guys have been doing it for so long?
You've got to dip your toes in there. It's pretty easy to read. A lot of our guys tend to play with their heart, which I don't advise. They like to keep players from teams that they're fans of, even though that may not be a wise decision. I've already got one guy who's thrown his keepers in already, and I'm kind of looking at him sideways, looking at what he's allowing to go back into the pool and what he's allowing to keep. And I know there's one questionable one, and I know it's just because he's a fan of that team. But you kind of knew that going in. He's kind of done that year in, year out. So you kind of build that familiarity with guys. You know which way they're going to go. A lot of guys can surprise you, though. And plus, having only a 16-man roster, you can kind of look at each roster and know which 3 are going to be kept on each team. You can have a pretty good idea.
Right. So last year, I was really high on Jeremy Hill. I was able to secure him in the draft. I know you had him on your team. So let's just talk about the rookies really quick, because that's got to be a huge aspect to your league every year.
Yeah, definitely. When you're playing keeper, a guy like Peyton Manning is great to keep. He's going to give you points week in, week out. You can start him no matter the matchup. Whether if he's alive, you're starting him pretty much. But at the same time, you look at some of these younger guys that you can keep for a lot longer. Rookies coming in, I think that's why I was looking at Jeremy Hill, because I knew if he took off, I would have a number 1 running back for a good 6-7 years, as opposed to guys, like this Marshawn Lynch now, who I've got to keep, who I might have only for another year or 2. So, this year, there's one guy that I'm really high on. I'm kind of eyeing on him. And when it came to the draft and he was available, I was pretty upset that my Rams passed on him. I thought they had a good chance to grab him, and they went with Todd Gurley instead.
Oh, I see. Yeah, he's somebody we've talked about on this show. Gosh, he looks really good. He is on your beloved Rams. The Rams suck. No, just kidding. Gosh, my Niners are going to be so bad this year. I don't want any text messages. I'm wearing this hat with pride, but I know
it's bad enough, so I won't let it hurt anymore.
Yeah, because I really do believe, you guys are looking really good this year. I like the defense. I mean, you got Gurley, you got so many good things happening for you, and it's nice to see. I mean, hey, I'd like to see someone bump off the Seahawks. So what better team than you? I don't really like Arizona that much, so hey, might have to be a Rams fan this year. Let's talk about basically in draft. I mean, you said you're the number 13th pick, right? So what are you going to do after that? That's kind of what I'm curious at getting. It's a keeper league, you said. So what's your plan as far as position-wise after your 13th pick?
So since it is the snake draft and my first pick comes in the second round at 13, I do then have a very long wait to grab my 5th player. So I know that most people are going to be taking those running backs. They're going to be keeping those running backs. There won't be a few available because I know a lot of people are going to be holding on to them to begin with. So in my mind, the only quarterback that is a keeper would be Andrew Luck. He's young enough and he's getting you points every week that it would matter to keep him. Everyone else, not so much a keeper, but he's young enough that you're going to keep him for a long time and you're going to benefit from that. If he were available in that 5th round, which I doubt, I would probably grab him next, but I'm looking to stock 2 to 3 wide receivers as fast as I can this year.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, you got to figure Luck's going to be gone, right? There's so many people that want a piece of that action, and especially with Indy now on what they're doing. They got my favorite player from the Niners. They got Frank Gore, who I think is going to really, really fit in nicely there, and now Andre Johnson over there. So I just think anything Indy's doing is going to be tremendous. So yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you're probably got your eyes on wide receivers. So no, that's great, man. I'm glad to hear a little bit about your league. I think this is always kind of interesting when we have a chance to interview a fellow commish. Let's talk about something else in your league. So you guys do something cool. I know we do it as well. Tell me about this NIT tournament you guys do.
Yeah, that was also born out of, I was commissioner because of the unhappiness I was experiencing in other leagues, and this was born kind of out of another league. What we had happened was, with the keepers, you definitely should have a structured draft where your previous season is affecting your draft order. So I came in 3rd, so I have to draft 8th. We go in reverse order. Now, one of the problems we were running into, kind of like the NFL went through with Suck for Luck, was we had guys who were intentionally throwing games to get the number 1 pick, because in that previous league, it was structured in a way that the biggest loser got the number 1 pick.
Right.
So we had guys 5 minutes before games just emptying their lineup and putting it all on their bench. And we had a commissioner who was getting upset because he was having to restock before game time and check everyone's drafts. So what I've done now also to keep everyone involved every week, which is another thing. I noticed people would just drop off. They'd stop playing because they thought they were out of it. So you've got now our championship bracket, which is playing for that prize, and we go in reverse order there. But everyone who didn't make the playoffs in that consolation bracket, that NIT bracket, is still now playing for the number 1 pick. So rather than the biggest loser gaining the number 1 pick, the person who's now won the NIT bracket or the consolation bracket has now earned the right to draft 1. So you're playing, whether you're playing for that belt or not, you're playing all the way through. You are involved until the last day.
Yeah, and I like that because participation's a huge deal. And, we talk about attrition rates, especially in the last show we did. And it's just a shame. I mean, you talk about guys dumping teams and trying to strategize for this and that, but ultimately, as a commissioner, you're graded on how many people come back every year and the quality of the owners that you have. And I think when you talk about the things you're doing, the NIT. I really like that. You're not going to lose anybody. The turnover is not going to be there. You're going to have people coming back. That's a really good. It's a really good idea. Really like that. Let's talk about the trophy real quick. Anyway, I can get a close up of that thing. I have a few questions.
Sure. Let me just move.
Boy, that thing. I mean, that thing's got to be cool. How did you come up with this belt? I mean, most guys have, a trophy. Some people have plaques. Some people have different things. Where'd you come up with the belt idea?
That was, just like I said, we wanted something that could be passed around, something that was better than just getting prize money like everyone else gives. I wanted something that meant something. This was part of our league. This gets passed around every year. It's the previous champion's duty to get it to the new winner. And this, I thought, was, although they do sell these and they're, a lot of people do have them, there's a lot of people that don't know about them, which I feel makes it a little more unique than a trophy. I've seen people who have league trophies look at ours and they say, well, that's cool. That's a belt. I want a belt. My trophy just sits on the wall. I had a champion a couple of years ago go to Spain, and he took the belt to Spain and was kind of taking pictures of himself and kind of showing it off, kind of sticking it in all our faces, and you couldn't really do that with a fantasy football trophy. But a belt, you walk in at, once you've won it, you walk into a bar with this. It's kind of a good, fun feeling.
That's awesome, man. Good for you for having that, difference. I know there's a lot of trophies, like you were saying, they're just kind of stock and simple, but I like it. That's very creative. I think, that'd be pretty cool to win your league and walk around with that thing on your belt and walk into the draft, like you said. Keeping it for a year, that's always nice. That makes a lot of people definitely want to play again and take some pride in the league. I know it's not all about trophies. They're not idolizing these things, but to have some cool hardware as your prize, I think that makes a big difference. Why do you like being a commissioner so much? Why do you do all this?
It's really the camaraderie of just fantasy football. It's not so much being commissioner, but that definitely makes me more involved with everybody. It's just these 10 guys per league that are just having fun, and it's almost like social time. You get locked into a job, you're working all the time. Every once in a while you're at work, you sneak away and you kind of check your score and you kind of text the guys, and it's just fun. It's fun social time. We've spread out, we've gotten married, we've got fiancés, we've got kids now. Everyone's kind of gone their separate ways, but when fantasy football season starts, it kind of brings us all together, and that's really why I wanted to be commissioner. It's just I've been able to choose kind of a circle of 9, 10 being myself, that we just kind of stick together and kind of go through this, and it's just fun.
Sure. So, all right, now we're going to kind of switch gears just a little bit here. We're actually going to go into the ad hoc portion of the show. Here we go. We do it every time. All right, so I know you're in a keeper league. You've kind of already talked a little bit about that, and I know you have your pick, but just taking a look at my board for people outside, whether you're in a keeper league or not, give me 3 guys off of what you see right here, and just tell me 3 killer facts real quick on why you choose those 3.
Just a quick look. Honestly, off the top of my head, I would say Adrian Peterson,
okay,
Le'Veon Bell, and Calvin Johnson.
And that would be dreaming for most people listening out there to get all 3 of those, but I like it. Now, why Adrian Peterson? A lot of mock drafts, a lot of experts out there, they have him ranked number 1. So do I. I have my reasons. Tell me yours. Why do you like Peterson so much?
I think Minnesota has taken a step up, which is going to help him. The team is better all around. It's not great, but it's better than it has been in recent years, which is going to lighten some of his load. And he's just taken a year off, and he seems like the type of person that has a chip on his shoulder with everything that's happened, that he just wants to prove everyone wrong. A lot of talk this year has been about his age. There's been a lot of talk about his age, and it seems to bother him. He seems to want to show people that his age isn't a factor, and he's just had a year off to rest those legs. And we saw this guy come back, 3 to 4 months earlier than expected from a major leg surgery.
Yeah.
And just tore the league up that year. And you're telling me these fresh legs are ready to go with a better team, with that guy who just wants to prove everybody wrong? There was
Plus, you
some,
got Norv Turner over there too. We never really got to see the best of him because Peterson didn't play a full season last
yeah.
year.
And I mean, there's talk about, was LaShawn McCoy the best running back over the last few years? And in a recent interview, AP seemed to be upset about that. Even though he hasn't played and all the legal troubles he's gone through, he seems to really regard himself as the number one running back, and I think he wants to show the world that he is. So I
Right,
think
right.
I'm gonna throw it out there. I think we're looking at 2,000 plus yards out of AP this year.
Wow, that would be awesome. I know there's a lot of Viking fans that would love that, nothing more, and everyone's excited over there. He still won't play in the preseason. I don't think they're going to do that. They're foolish, right? They never have. But
Mm-hmm.
I like it. That's kind of aligns with what my board says. You mentioned Le'Veon Bell. He's going to be out for some games here. But again, right now, we're not talking about keeper specifically. We're just throwing it out there on just players. And so why Le'Veon Bell?
He proved himself last year. He's a good back. He's on a good team, and you've got a good young back that you can ride for a while. As opposed to AP, where you're only going to be able to keep him for a year or two. You've got a good quality back who's just now starting to hit his prime and really take off and learn what he can do. I don't think Le'Veon's hit his ceiling yet, and he's just going to get better.
So in a redraft league, the biggest question I'm getting so far, because a lot of people were like, hey, he should be the number one overall drafted running back. But a lot of people keep emailing me and asking me, they're like, yeah, but he's going to miss some games. I mean, doesn't that hurt? In my opinion, I don't think it hurts at all. Why not? I mean, it sounds silly even talking about that, but I think you have to obviously counterbalance him just in case, right? You don't know what's going to happen, but with another running back. But I just think what Big Ben's doing, you got Antonio Brown, the Steelers are going to be throwing a lot this year, and he's an amazing catcher of the football. And like I had, my buddy Quinn, who's on this show, the guy does not get negative yards. He falls forward. He's always moving towards the goal line, and he catches the football so well. So I'm in total agreement on him. Tell me about Calvin Johnson, moving on to him. I know those are your three. So finish up with Calvin. Why him?
Calvin is again, I told you earlier that you probably shouldn't play with the heart. Calvin, I do. Calvin is my favorite player in the NFL. I've always had a soft spot for wide receivers. And again, he, just like I mentioned with Peyton Manning earlier, this is a guy who I know a lot of people will stress matchups. They won't start this guy or that guy because of this reason and who's on defense. Calvin's a guy, I don't care. You're going to play him no matter what. He's that good. We've seen him year after year deal with injuries, nagging injuries, nothing major, but he has still gone up and put out crazy numbers every year. And how can you deny a guy like that?
Yeah, it's true. And, on my list, he's number 3 right now. A lot of other websites I'm seeing, there's still people that are pushing him down. A lot of people are crazy out there to think Odell Beckham Jr. should be somewhere in the top 3, which is asinine because Victor Cruz is coming back, people. Let's not get crazy on Odell Beckham. Megatron is still the best, man. You always want to draft, in my opinion, you want the tallest stud you can get, and I can't think of anybody better than Calvin Johnson. Would I put him over Demaryius right now, today? Probably not. I still think Demaryius has an edge. Antonio Brown has the hot hand, so that's why I've ranked him number 1. But I really appreciate the fact that that's your favorite player. I thought you were going to say something like Sam Bradford. I'm just kidding.
Well, he's not around anymore, so why would I?
Gosh, would you ever see another contract like that in the NFL? I think that guy, he landed the lottery, but I mean, unbelievable how number 1 quarterback like that, and he's not even a Ram anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think he got a fair shake in St. Louis, and not so much to say that the team forced him out or anything. More of an issue of, the line was terrible when he was there. He was injury prone. He played a lot from his back, and you can't really expect that much from a quarterback when they're just getting knocked down all the time. So yeah. I'm kind of interested to see what he does in Philly, to see if what we saw over the last few years was the real Bradford, or whether we're going to see the real one now with an improved line, a better wide receiver core, a better running back. So I'm interested to see what he does out there.
I think a lot of people forget that Sam Bradford can throw the deep ball, so that will be interesting to see what Chip Kelly does with him. He's got DeMarco Murray now. You know, Darren Sproles. There's a lot of good things for him. It's interesting that we're even bringing up this guy. I'll kind of switch gears real quick, Chris. And again, thanks so much for being on.
Thank you.
I love your restaurant, man. I mean, I know you got the shirt on. It's Shorty's. Tell me a little bit about the restaurant before we go any further.
Yeah, I just recently opened up my own business, October 2014. It's a brand new baby. We're 9 months in, so I just had my baby. We're located in Fullerton, right off the 57 freeway and Yorba Linda Boulevard. Things are going great. You want to come down anytime. If anybody watching this, come see me, say hi. Maybe I'll set you up.
Right on. And this is burgers, fries, and shakes. I've had it. It's tremendous. It's an amazing place and very exciting for you, man. That's good. It's awesome to hear, a small business owner.
Thank you.
So that's cool. And you got some TVs in there, so I'm sure you're gonna have to watch some fantasy as you work, because you're there like 7 days, aren't you?
Yeah, NFL Sundays can be a little tough. You got one eye on the grill and one eye on the TV.
And not to mention you're a commissioner, right? That's what this whole interview was. So I'm sure you got a lot of things going on, man. That's pretty crazy. I did want to ask you a question. I know some of the listeners would appreciate this one. You mentioned that you have Marshawn Lynch again. I had him last year. I did quite well with him. It was an amazing year. But this year I have a question for you. And both of us hate the Seahawks, so we'll talk about the Seahawks really quick. With Marshawn Lynch, obviously we know about Russell Wilson. Tell me about Jimmy Graham, how he fits into this offense. What's going to happen here? I mean, there's a lot of mouths to feed, but are you still confident in Lynch based on this new addition, new weapon?
For sure. It's only going to open up more room for him. Maybe that final play of the Super Bowl, maybe he gets a few more touches because of that. Maybe they go to him on the goal line a little more often. Coverage has now got to spread out. They've got to tally for Jimmy Graham and Lynch. You saw a lot of guys stack in the box before. Maybe people weren't too confident in Russell's abilities. Well, maybe you're still not too confident in his abilities, but when you got Jimmy Graham running the routes, you definitely need to be worried about that. Maybe that ball doesn't go to Marshawn. So maybe I'll move over here, and all of a sudden Marshawn cuts loose because we know he can catch the ball and run too.
Yeah, he's tremendous with that. He does those wheel routes. He's famous for doing that a lot last year. And I'm sure my question seems a little, silly in the fact that I'm asking about, will Jimmy Graham help the offense? It's just interesting to me on what Seattle's going to do. Obviously, they're going to play good defense like they always do. You got the best mobile quarterback in the league with Russell. I'm just doing kind of the math on how many wide receivers they have, how many options they have now, and that's why I'm curious about Lynch. But I think to your point, what they're probably going to do with such a move tight end, and what I mean by move tight end is that was Drew Brees throwing to Jimmy Graham. You got Russell Wilson now throwing to him. I think it's a lot different. I think Jimmy Graham's going to be more of a blocking tight end. That's just me personally. Jimmy's been my favorite player for years now, but I think although he will have a good year as a tight end, I like to see him more as a blocking tight end. So I guess if I'm going to redirect that question to myself, I like Lynch because of that. And I think Pete Carroll knows that. And I think, like you said, all those things about Lynch being hungry and pissed off about the Super Bowl. So this could be very, very interesting. Tell me real quick, since you are a Rams fan, let's just go in really quick. Talk to me about the quarterback situation with the Rams.
Interesting. Again, same kind of thing with Bradford. I think we had Foles who had that one good year. Was it an anomaly? Maybe. But also he seemed to get run out of town pretty recently. So it'll be interesting to see what he does in St. Louis, how he gels with Gurley, if we can actually build a franchise off of these two guys, and if Gurley can even stay healthy. Earlier I mentioned that they passed on someone I wanted, and that was Melvin Gordon. I'm high on Melvin Gordon. I love Melvin Gordon. I was a little, I kind of looked at him cross-eyed when they took Gurley, but I can't be mad about it either, because when that guy is healthy and he's on, and he can go. We got him, if we can improve that line, the defense is looking better every year. So, put the ball in Foles and Gurley's hands and see what they can do.
Yeah, and I think Nick Foles is going to appreciate a guy like Gurley. I mean, he's a hard worker. He's going to grind it. I just think what's interesting, I'm looking outside here as a Niner fan, but a guy I really like on the Rams from a fantasy perspective, I drafted him last year, is Trey Mason. And so you just have to wonder because he's an amazing runner as well. And you got Jeff Fisher over there, who sometimes can play the committee. Sometimes he goes with the stud. We saw that with Zach Stacy. Tell me a little about Trey Mason, Trey Day.
I had Trey. Trey was actually involved in my trade for Lynch.
Oh, he was.
Yeah, he is. Him and a draft pick for Lynch and a draft pick back my way. I like Trey. Again, I'm not too big on guys who've had one good year and we just kind of stick it to them and say, this is the guy. They need a few years to kind of prove themselves. I think Trey could probably start somewhere. I really do. And I think if Gurley gets his feet under him 8 games into the season, you kind of start calling other GMs and saying, hey, look, we got this guy over here, and maybe you trade him for a draft pick so you can draft a high wide receiver, or maybe you trade him for a veteran wide receiver to kind of beef up these younger guys, teach them the ropes, because that's what I think the Rams really are missing. I think they've got a good tight end that they don't really utilize, but I think, they really need to improve the wide receiving core.
Interesting. All right, I'm going to throw you just a total screwball side question here. Now we're going to talk about biggest surprise running back between, I'm going to give you 2 choices here. We're going to talk about Doug Martin with Tampa Bay. So now you have Jameis Winston over there. And Doug Martin, we haven't heard his name really in a couple years now. And now I'm going to compare him to the Dallas Cowboys and Joseph Randle. Biggest surprise running back for this year. What do you say?
I would have to go with Randle.
Okay.
I'm going to back Randall's horse on that one. I think McFadden is no DeMarco Murray. They call him Mr. Glass for a reason. I like to call him Run DMC like everybody else, but he needs to stay healthy, and he's never done it.
Right.
He's got a much improved line. He's got a better quarterback. He's got better odds. But I think Randall's going to be nipping at his heels. The question is, the money that's invested are the Cowboys finally going to push Randall into that forefront and say, you know what, go for it, and let that investment sit on the bench? That's, I think, is the bigger question.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Darren McFadden. I basically put in my book last year, I mean, if you were to rank the most or the highest injury-prone running backs in the NFL, I mean, that guy's like number 3 on my list. It's insane how the guy can't stay healthy.
I think he's great too, and it's a shame that he can't get going.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I threw out Doug Martin there because I know a lot of people are talking about Martin could have a reemergence into the league, especially for fantasy, with a quarterback and with Vincent Jackson running well and everything down in Tampa. It's going to be very interesting. I'll throw you another side question here on running backs. We'll just stick to that. Tell me about Justin Forsett. Now that you got Mark Trestman over there in Baltimore, what do you think about this guy?
Blew up last year. I picked him up as a waiver wire pickup and foolishly thought that he couldn't maintain those numbers all year long and let him go. And that probably is what cost me the title last year. So I'm kind of looking at Forsett. It's interesting because you get some of these guys who kind of surprise, and I think that the conditions are right. So it'll be interesting to see now that Forsett knows that he's the lead guy. Now the ball is his. Can he duplicate that? And in my opinion, I'm going to throw it out there, I don't think he will.
Okay. Interesting. All right. We're gonna kind of wrap this up, but as we do, again, just thanks for being on. He's Chris Z. He's a former fellow commissioner, and I just think it's awesome to get a different perspective. He has a keeper league, and he's already kind of explained a little bit about that. What are you looking for most about this year with your Rams, and tell me about their record? What do you think their record's going to be? You're on record here today, so this is July here. What's your record going to be for your Rams?
I'm going to play it 50-50, and I'm going to say 8-8 this year.
Okay. I was going to actually phrase the question like over under 7 games, but that answers the question.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of new pieces, and they need to work. They need to see what happens, So I think that they're better, and that's going to lead to some victories. But at the same time, with so much kind of influx in St. Louis and them not knowing if Gurley's going to be ready by the start of the season, most likely not. Things are going to have to wait. They're going to take some losses. Again, they're still in a tough division. They still have Seattle to contend with. Arizona looks good. We're probably got 2 victories in hand when we face the Niners. That'll probably be no problem on that one. But outside of that, you know, it's gonna be a battle. But this season, I'm looking at with the Rams. I'm looking at to see what they have, almost to see what cards they can play and what they can build. I'm not looking at playoffs. I'm not looking at them winning anything. I just want them to see these are the pieces we have. Let's see what we can add to it down the line and see what we can build here.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things that Ram fans have to look forward to this year, and I think Jeff Fisher's excited. You get, like you said, you got the defense, you got the offense now, and a new quarterback that could really shake up a lot of things. So, Chris, thanks so much for being on, man. You're a great friend, awesome commissioner. The guys in your league should really appreciate you. And again, if you're in Fullerton, you got to stop by. Hamburger, fries, and a shake at Shorty's. Chris Z, man, thank you for being on again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was fun.
All right, man. Well, hey, for Mock Ad Hoc, I'm Johnny B, and thanks for tuning in tonight. Hope you learned a little bit about a keeper league. Got a little perspective there on a fellow commissioner, and we'll see you on the next podcast. So thanks again. For Chris, I'm Johnny B. Have a good night. See you guys.